If you've got a keen eye, you know I'm not in Siem Reap anymore. I'm here in Sri Lanka, in the capital city of Colombo, and it's time for my Siem Reap trip report. To start off with, though, let's talk a little bit about Cambodia itself. Some of my older viewers may remember when Cambodia was referred to as Kampuchea, or the People's Republic of Kampuchea. That only lasted between 1975 and 1989. Before that and after that, Cambodia is now known as the Kingdom of Cambodia. I remember in 1985 I was coaching the Brunei national swimming team at the SEA Games in Thailand, and Kampuchea, well, Cambodia was referred to as Kampuchea at that time, but not anymore. I arrived in Cambodia on April 29th and left on May 20th. So my stay there was about 3 weeks. And in this video, I want to talk about some of the things that you might consider if you're planning on visiting Siem Reap, and how I found it in the 3 weeks that I was there. The first thing I want to talk about is where I stayed in Siem Reap. It's a place I'd never been before, so I really don't trust Airbnb. I'm not familiar with the culture with Airbnb in small towns in Cambodia. So my strategy was to pick a hotel, and I'm glad I did. I ended up staying at a place called Sakaban Residencies, or Sakaban Suites. It goes by the same name. You can get a link to it in the notes below, and I put the name on the bottom of the screen there so you know how to spell it. I looked through Booking.com and found a hotel that seemed to offer everything I wanted, including a breakfast every morning. Sakaban Residencies is right on Sok San Road, which is, as far as I can figure out, right in the middle of the tourist area. So as soon as I walked out of the hotel, I had access to transport, usually the tuk-tuks, which in another video you'll find out drive me crazy. But it's also near restaurants, convenience stores, and other kinds of things that tourists like when they go to a small town. So in my opinion, choosing Sakaban Residencies was one of the best moves I made when visiting a small town that I'd never been to in a foreign country before. One thing people find immediately odd when they arrive in Cambodia is that it uses two kinds of currency. One is their local currency called the Cambodian riel, or Khmer riel, and the US dollar. The currencies are both used quite freely. There's no preference as far as I could find between the riel and the dollar. You could use either one depending on what you were doing and the amount that you were paying. If I went into a 7-Eleven on the little cash register where they totaled up my purchases, the cost that I had to pay would be displayed in both riels and dollars, so I could use whichever currency that I had in my wallet at the time. Likewise, I could use a combination of the currencies if you were familiar enough with what their value was in relation to each other. At the time I visited Siem Reap, the standard rate of exchange between the riel and the dollar was approximately 4,000 riels equals $1. Now the official rate is slightly different. I think at the time it was 4,100 or 4,200, but when you're paying with dollars in a place like a restaurant or a 7-Eleven, you don't really have to concern yourself too much with what the exact conversion rate is. If you go to a bank to exchange money or a currency exchange kiosk to exchange money, you'll get the exact rate. But when you're paying for something with dollars in a shop, I wouldn't worry about it too much. As far as using cash is concerned, I have two tips that you might find useful. First is always be aware of how much cash in each currency that you have in your wallet. It makes paying for things when you're leaving a store or leaving a restaurant a lot easier. You don't have to fish through your wallet looking for just the right number of bills. The second tip is if you're bringing US dollars to spend in Cambodia, make sure the bills are relatively new. If they're old, worn out bills, they won't accept them. If there's any marks or tears or anything on the bill that mars it in any way, they won't accept them. Also, if you are bringing US dollars to Cambodia, it's always a good idea to have a few $1 bills to use as tips after a tuk-tuk ride or something like that. They come in handy and they're much appreciated. Finally, you guys know that I like to use American Express to get points when I travel. In Siem Reap, I was unable to use American Express in any of the places that I went to. Now, I don't travel to high-end hotels or fancy restaurants, so you might have been able to use an American Express card in places like that in Siem Reap. But where I stayed, no, you couldn't. I ended up using a Visa. Visa and MasterCard are widely accepted throughout Siem Reap. American Express, not so much. I flew into Siem Reap from Bangkok on AirAsia, and my flight landed at the Siem Reap Angkor International Airport. It's a brand new airport. It's very far from town. I took a taxi into town and it took about an hour. But the airport itself, it's not really that well used yet. It's very big, it's brand new, but there weren't that many people there either on my arrival or when I departed 3 weeks later. It was also very uncomfortable in the airport. Something is wrong with the air conditioning. It's not that it was hot inside the airport, but it was uncomfortable because of the humidity. The humidity was such that just standing or sitting around inside the airport, moisture in the air would begin to form on your skin. It's not that you were sweating. It's not that kind of moisture. It's just moisture in the air. Something with the dew point, the air conditioning system was not able to keep up with it, or it was just not adjusted properly. It was very uncomfortable both times I was there, both on arrival and on departure. If you flew into Siem Reap many years ago, you might realize that the old airport was much closer to town. The reason they didn't build a new airport in the same area was because the vibration from the planes taking off and landing, they thought were disturbing the temple foundations and the buildings surrounding the temples themselves. So that's primarily the reason why the airport is so far away from town. The other reason, of course, is whenever you build a piece of public infrastructure like that, you're hoping that the town will build up businesses and homes and residential areas around it. That hasn't started happening yet. The airport is relatively new, so that may happen in the future. Getting around in Siem Reap is very easy. I like to walk a lot, and I found that the sidewalks in Siem Reap, at least in the area where I was staying, were very good. In fact, to me, they looked like they were brand new or just installed. Personally, I think this has something to do with the Chinese Belt and Road Initiative. I know the Chinese helped build the international airport and they built the road that leads out to it, and I think they probably had something to do with building the sidewalks in town. If you don't want to walk, then you can get a taxi if you want, but really there's tons of tuk-tuks, these little wagons that are pulled by motorcycles, and believe me, you will not miss them. As soon as you step out of your hotel, there will be at least one tuk-tuk driver asking where you're going and can they give you a ride and telling you how much it will cost before you take more than a dozen steps. If you're traveling to and from the airport, I suggest that the easiest and best way is by the airport bus. Taxi is a little bit more expensive. The bus when I took it was $8 US, which is about 33,000 Cambodian reals, and it's much more comfortable than a tuk-tuk would be. A tuk-tuk is probably cheaper, but it wouldn't be very comfortable, especially if it's raining or if the weather is very hot. Other forms of transport in Siem Reap include motorcycles or motorbikes and bicycles. There are a lot of places that will rent both, or you can find places that rent one or the other. I didn't rent either one, but If you're thinking of renting a bicycle, I would say that it's a good bet because traffic does move kind of slow. And if you pay attention and obey the traffic laws, you should have no trouble. So I would feel very comfortable riding a bicycle around Siem Reap. Do you need a motorbike driving license for Siem Reap? I don't know. A lot of times people ask that in Facebook forums for Thailand and Cambodia. The true answer is probably yes, but in reality, do you need it? I'm not sure. So, if you go to Siem Reap, what is there to do there? Well, obviously, if you're going there probably to visit the World Heritage Site at Angkor. That includes Angkor Wat and many of the surrounding temples in the area. There are also night markets, and there's street food available at night. There's a pub street somewhere in town. So there's a lot of things to do once you get back from the Angkor Heritage Site. If you're going to go out to Angkor Wat, you will need a ticket. You can buy that online. Make sure you buy it from the government website. It has a suffix of .kh. It might be .gov.kh. I can't remember now, but it will have KH at the end of it, which is the Cambodian internet suffix. Also, when you go to Angkor, make sure you bring something to drink. Once you get there, your tuk-tuk driver or shuttle bus will drop you off almost 1 kilometer from the actual temple complex itself. It's a long walk to the temple complex. It's a nice walk in the morning. Coming back in the afternoon after you've been climbing around the temples for a couple of hours, it is no longer a nice walk. It's usually 30, 35 degrees, somewhere in there. And if you haven't had any water at all since the morning, you're going to be suffering. So bring something to drink. Outside the temple complex, 1 kilometer away from the temples, there's plenty of little stalls and shops to buy drinks and snacks. But once you're inside, no, it's a food desert. I visited Angkor Wat and Thap Prom Temple on 2 different days. Both times I hired a tuk-tuk to take me out to the temple complexes and then back. Thap Prom is in the same area. It's a little bit farther than Angkor Wat, but it's in pretty much the same area. There are also other temples that you can visit, and it's easy to get a list of those in town. There are other things to see in Siem Reap. They have museums, cooking classes, craft classes. Oh, and there's a bird park. Frankly, I'd rather kill myself than go to a bird park, but that's me. You might be interested in something like that. The next question you might have is, do you need a visa for Cambodia? The answer to that, of course, is it depends on where you're from. I'm from the US, so yes, I did need a visa to enter Cambodia. There are a lot of visa agents that you can find online, and the process is pretty simple and straightforward. I had to supply a picture of my passport and a selfie, and of course I had to pay for it online. And there's all kinds of other questions that you have to answer, like where you live, where you might be staying, when are you planning on leaving, things along those lines. There are some countries whose citizens can enter Cambodia without a visa. They'll get like an entry pass or a visit pass at the airport, but I don't know who those people are. You can easily find all this information online though. Siem Reap is a small place. If you're a whirlwind traveler, you might find it too small to spend up to 3 weeks there like I did. 3 or 4 days to see the sights is probably enough. But the longer I was there, the more I liked it. It was a little claustrophobic for the first day or so because it really did seem small. But the more I stayed around and traveled through the city, I enjoyed the city more and more. I was a little bit sad to leave. Will I go back there? If I have a reason to, I will. I'm not just going to go back and vacation again. But if I have a reason to, I'll go back and I'll look forward to it. I hope you found this video interesting. Thanks for watching, and be seeing you in the next one.